Before we get into your topic today, Ken and Margie, we're asking everyone to share their perspective on the question, what do leaders need to do today to adapt to a changing world? Ken, what do you think?
Well, Joanna, I think they really have to realize that leadership is not about them, it's about the people that they're serving. And so they need to get out of their own way. And if you take care of your people, they'll take care of you and they'll take care of the organization. So it's we, not me. That's my big advice.
We, not me. That's great. Thank you for being so pithy and so profound at the same time. Okay, so now let's get into your topic on servant leadership, a 4-step approach to bringing out the best in yourself and others.
Well, I tell you, servant leadership is the only way to get great results and great human satisfaction. And we really feel that it's important to understand what it's all about. And what we're going to do is take you on a journey through 4 domains of servant leadership. We're going to look at the heart, which is about your character and who you are. Secondly, we're going to look at your head, which is what are your thoughts and beliefs about servant leadership. Then we're going to look at your hands, which is in many ways, how do you apply and use what you know about servant leadership? And then finally, we'll take a look at your habits, which is what do you do on a daily basis to recalibrate who you want to be in the world. And we feel that the world is in desperate need of a different leadership role model. We've seen what self-serving leaders have done in a negative way in every sector of society. So this is all about how you can make a difference being a servant leader. So Margie, why don't you share a little bit about the first domain, the heart of a servant leader?
The big question we ask is, are you here to serve or to be served? And so when we ask that question, not very many people sign up for, well, I want to be served. They pretty much say, well, of course I'd like to serve. But what gets in the way? We every morning we wake up, we try to do our best in terms of helping our people grow and develop and be interested in them. But what gets in the way? And so one of the big things that we think gets in the way is the human ego. And we all have an ego. I mean, we could call it edging God out or everything good outside, but it's that part of ourselves that gets in the way. And what happens is when the ego's in the way, we either have a more than philosophy, I'm smarter than, or I like to work faster than, or whatever than, or, and it's a little more surprising, we might have a less than kind of feeling, I'm not as smart as, or I can't speak up or something like that. But it's really that whole idea of focusing on yourself and getting your own feelings in the way rather than focusing on other people. So Ken and I have been very pleased to be part of a master's degree program at the University of San Diego for many years. And so the course that we teach is on servant leadership. And one of the things that we do when we first have met our students is we talk about ego. We talk about when your ego gets in the way, it always separates, it always distorts, and it always compares. And it's always with you. So we sort of have a little fun with it, and we have Egos Anonymous meetings. And what that looks like is if it's my turn, I might stand up and say, hi, I'm Margie, and I'm an egomaniac. And the last time that my ego got in the way was yesterday. Yesterday I noticed an article that was in our, company newsletter, and it was by my daughter. And it was a really great article, but then I'm sitting there thinking, well, why didn't they ask me to write an article? And so my little less than part of the ego gets in the way, and it gets in the way maybe of being as good as I can be. And there's certainly many other ways. But as you go around in the room and everybody shares, maybe an encounter they had with their son or their daughter or their wife, or yesterday at a meeting, you begin to realize that your ego's with you all the time. And so one of the things that you need to be is more aware of it. And, so ask, what's the antidote? Well, one of the antidotes to a more than approach is humility. mean, that's one of the biggest characteristics of a great leader, is to realize that, you know, you don't know everything, and that things are going to get in your way about your ego. The other is, if you have a less than approach, what I need to remember is God didn't make junk. You know, I'm a wonderful person with good intentions, and if I really want to write that article, then all I need to do is raise my hand and see if I can do that. But I don't want to let that ego get in my way. And so this is a kind of a fun way that we use to help people realize that the more aware you are of your ego getting in the way, the better you're probably going to be in terms of your relationships with other people. But it's a hard issue. It's, do you want to serve or be served? And we really, with servant leadership, we're really focusing on this idea of helping your people win. And that, you know, you are a very important person in that area. So that's one part, anyway, of the heart and how we might deal with it. So Ken, why don't you talk about the head of a servant leader?
Yes, the head has all to do with what are your beliefs about servant leadership. And when I talked to people about servant leadership initially, a lot of people thought I was talking about the inmates running the prison or trying to please everybody. But they don't realize that there are two parts of servant leadership. There's vision, direction, values, and goals, because leadership's about going somewheres. And that's the responsibility of the hierarchy. It doesn't mean you don't involve your people, but if your people don't understand what they're being asked to do and what good behavior looks like and what the values that should drive their behavior, shame on you, because it's your responsibility as a manager to make sure that's clear. Now, once the leadership part, and that's what that is, that's the leadership part of servant leadership. And now what you do is philosophically, you turn the pyramid upside down, and now you're working for your people. This is the servant part of servant leadership. And the big question is, how can I help? It's about helping them win. You can always tell an organization run by self-serving leaders, because if you have a problem, what people want to do is they want to go up the hierarchy, and you're talking to ducks. They're going quack, quack, quack. It's our policy, quack, quack. I just work here. I didn't make the policies, quack, 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 quack. You know, and they want to go up the hierarchy, and the leaders want to make sure everybody knows who's in charge. Where if you're in an organization where there are servant leaders, when you got a problem, you're talking to an eagle, and they're ready to say, how can I help? I'll take care of it, and all. So that's the important distinction there in the head. And in our course, it's a management of science and executive leadership at the University of San Diego, which we co-started with the university. And Margie's in my course, we teach them how to determine or share their leadership point of view, which is about your beliefs. And Marge, why don't you tell us a little bit about that process?
Well, this is some of the most exciting work that I've been doing in the last 5-10 years, really, is helping people, first of all, believe that if people know more about them, and if they know kind of their background and what were some significant experiences in their background and what their learnings were from that, and then how that turned into what they value and what their expectations are and what you can expect from them. It sort of is this inside out job, because leadership is an inside out job. The more you know about yourself, the more you realize what your triggers are, and the more you're willing to share, I think the more effective you are. And one of the wonderful things about doing this in a class is people find that they're interested in other people, not even in our own company, and they become convinced, well, then maybe people will be interested in me. And so the way we get at people's leadership point of view is we have them interview each other 3 or 4 times about significant events and what they learned, or significant people in their lives and what they learned from them, and then how that turned into some of their beliefs and even their values. And then how did that turn into what were some of their expectations? Because even though you might wind up with a 10 or 15-minute talk about your leadership point of view, and even though it's about you, it's for the people who are supporting and depending on you. It's so they will know more about you. So I was thinking about my own leadership point of view and what I might be able to share. And so if I were giving it, I might talk about my grandmother who lived through the Depression. Unlike my other grandmother who lived on a farm and had plenty of food and everything, my mother's mother, watched their furniture be sold at auction outside of their house. And she took the 5 children up to a family farm in upper New York State. And my grandfather went to New York to see how he could make a living for the family going forward. And when she was up there, the stories were just amazing about how she knitted outfits for wealthy women in Buffalo, and she grew mushrooms for sale in the basement. And she even watched when they came to turn off the electricity, she watched how they did it. And so after they left, she climbed back up on the pole and turned it back on again. And these were just stories about my grandmother. But when I knew her, and especially as a teenager, she came to Philadelphia where we were living. She was a renowned flower arranging contestant and also judge. And, but I watched her, and, if she couldn't find the right dishes for her flower arrangement, she learned to make them. She became a ceramics expert. And I would, as a nice teenager, if I were going out on an errand, I'd ask grandmother, would you like to go? Well, she always wanted to go. And she was full of questions. She wanted to know why my collar was up like this, and what's that little circle pin, and all these things. Very curious, very curious. In fact, I think she's the only person in the family that read Ken's doctoral dissertation and then used it to evaluate grandfather's leadership style. But I learned so much from her. I learned about resilience. I learned about resourcefulness. I watched the curiosity that she had, and those are important things for me. They're important for our team. They're important for us, especially right now when we have to be resourceful. And so you can depend on me wanting that for us and for our team and valuing that. And, I might even say, Francisco, when you went through all those learning aids that we've had and you looked which ones are still working and which ones aren't, that's an example of resourcefulness that I really, really appreciate. Anyway, that might be woven into a 10 to 15 minute talk, but at the end, people know me better. They're going to remember the stories that I told, and they're probably going to remember the values that came out of those stories and what some of those expectations are. And so it's a gift to them. And one of the things that has really been working in our company is when someone takes a new position. For instance, our son just became president of the Ken Blanchard companies in January. And the very first thing that he did was work on his leadership point of view, because some people knew him in various ways over the years and some didn't know him at all. And he put the time in to talk about his background, what it was like growing up in our family, what were some of the key events that shaped him, and what were the values that he prized. In his case, it was really being forthright, which has really been important, being kind. And, even people that had known him for a long time knew him in another way. And it really was a wonderful way for him to start his influence process, but also so people knew what to expect from him, what he expected of us, and also why. And so it's become an important thing. It's not easy work. And what I love is by the end of our weekend together, people have a crafted leadership point of view. Our coaches work very hard with people one-on-one to develop their leadership point of view. And some of them use it in orientation, some of them use it trying to get new jobs. But it's a way of kind of pulling together your beliefs and where those beliefs came from, and really help you with the head part of servant leadership. So Ken, talk about the hands.
Well, it's important, as Margie's saying, to understand, first of all, who you are. In your heart, you want to serve. What are your beliefs that you have about leadership? How are you going to serve? And your leadership point of view really is a way for you to find out about yourself and then to share that with your people so they understand you. Now, what they're going to be interested in, though, which gets to the hands, is do you walk your talk? Because the hands is all about your behavior. And to me, when you're talking about servant leadership and really implementing it, the whole big point is how do you help the people around you win? How do you help them improve their performance? And to me, there's three parts of managing people's performance. There's performance planning, where you set goals and objectives, and also the people are clear on what they're being asked to do and how you might go about helping them. Then there is, once that's taken care of, then you move to the next thing, which is day-to-day coaching. So that now once they are clear about goals, how do you help them accomplish it? And then the final is performance evaluation. But the problem is when I talk to people around the world and about these three things, performance planning, day-to-day coaching, and performance evaluation, I ask them, which one do you spend the most time on? And universally I get evaluation. Why? Because that's where the emphasis is, because in so many organizations, they have to determine who they're going to build up and who they're going to kind of take down, because they're supposed to have a normal distribution curve. That's the stupidest thing I've ever heard of. I mean, I say to people, how many are going to go out and hire some losers this year? I mean, we lost some of our worst people last year. How do we get some new losers to fill the low slots? No, you either hire winners who you steal from other companies, or you hire people who are potential winners and you help them. And so to me, the biggest area that you need to spend on is the day-to-day coaching. And when I talked about the head, which is performance planning, the emphasis is on the leadership part. What are we going to try to accomplish? Once people are clear on their goals and objectives, now you move to the servant part, and that's where it's all about day-to-day coaching. How do I help them win? And I always felt when I was a college professor, I was in trouble because the faculty would say, what are you doing? Because I would give people the final exam the first day of class. And they said, what are you doing? I said, I'm trying to help them win. Well, don't give them the questions in the final. I say, not only am I going to give them the questions in the final, what do you think I'm going to do all semester? I'm going to teach them the answers. So when they get to the final exam, they get A. Life is about getting A's, not some stupid normal distribution curve. And when organizations do that, what a difference. Gary Ridge, who's the president of WD-40, was in our first cohort in our master's degree program. And he started applying all this that we taught him. And he and I wrote a book together called Help People Win at Work, and listen to the subtitle, a business philosophy called Don't Mark My Paper, Help Me Get an A. And so at WD-40, the whole goal is how do you help people win? How do you help them get an A? And the thing is not to sort people out, it's to help them get an A. And at WD-40, managers don't fill out forms on their people fill out forms. And they get together once in a quarter and look at, what have they given an A, B, and a C to? There's no D's or F's. And then the manager looks and says agrees or disagrees. And they do that every quarter. They can even change their goals all the way to the beginning of the fourth quarter. You think this makes a difference? You better believe it, because WD-40 in the last count had a 93% employee engagement score. Can you imagine that? And in a recent survey, they asked people, and they're in 30 nations and all, are you proud to tell people you work for WD-40? 99% of the people said yes. So, wow, if you walk your talk, it really makes a difference. So the heart is, what do you believe, what's in your heart about leadership? Then the head is what your thoughts are. And then the hands is what do you do? Now, Margie, share with them about the habits, which is all about recalibration and being who you say you wanted to be.
Okay, the habits are important, but I want to just touch on the hands. Our programs, situational or SL2, and 1 Minute Manager, and building trust, and managing change, and so many of the other programs that are offered through our industry they really are the hands. They're helping people to behave on their good intentions and to have more enlightened conversations with their people. And again, I love this side-by-side sort of thing. But when you get to the habits, you know, we all, again, wake up in the morning and we want to be the best managers or best leaders we can. So how do we stay on this path? How do we recalibrate ourselves so that we can be strong, and particularly right now with so much that's going on? So there are a couple things that I'd like to suggest. I think there are some rituals. One of the rituals that is most important to me is having regular one-on-one meetings with your people. And the one-on-one meetings I'm talking about are not performance improvement meetings. They really are what's on your mind. To this day, when I have a meeting with my direct report, what's on your mind? Because I want to hear what's getting in the way of their life, or what's good, what's really good. And so it's building that relationship. But in many ways, structure helps. And having one-on-one meetings that people can count on is a way, a habit that you can inculcate in your culture. Also, taking care of yourself. I mean, to this day, we are surrounded by such negative news. And one of the things that I personally do is I try to feed my mind with positive things. I try to feed my mind with hopeful things, because I think that leaders are purveyors of hope. And I think that we need to believe that, that we have wonderful people in our organizations and that they are wanting to help. And I don't know, I heard a story of a little girl who got accidentally 80% on her spelling test. And she thought, 80%? Boy, if I study, I could get 100%. So she did. She studied and she got 100% on her next spelling test. And I asked myself, what are the chances of that little girl's teacher or her principal hearing about that little victory versus the kid who sets off a firecracker in his locker? Bad news rises. And what happens is bad news comes right to the manager's desk. It comes right to the leader's desk. And if you're not careful and you don't feed yourself hopeful things, you could begin to think people are changing, and that you need more and more rules to keep people, you know, on the right track. And I think it's very, very important to feed yourself with positive and inspirational messages, stories. Certainly meditation helps, prayer. One of the big things that we work with our leaders on is solitude, you know, having a chance to pull back a little. And we've certainly, I think, had some more opportunities to do that lately. But I think that all of that helps you sort of recalibrate. Am I living according to the very things that I value the most? And if I'm not, then how can I do better tomorrow? And so I think that, you know, having a chance to pull back a little bit, certainly people that journal really can look at the things that they're struggling with, and prayer is also very, very helpful. So I think whatever you can do to, I call it extreme self-care, extreme self-care in the midst of a world that is asking us to go faster and faster and in less and less depth. And I really believe that if you want to be a servant leader, you do have to take care of yourself and protect yourself from, you know, basically a lot of messages that may not serve you, in terms of truly believing that you have a wonderful opportunity in leading people to impact their lives. And so that's certainly one of the things that I would put under the habits part. Okay, so Ken, what do you have to add to this in terms of habits that are helping you?
Well, I tell you, Margie, I learned from Norman Vincent Peale. He was 86 years old, you know, the author of The Power of Positive Thinking. And he said we have two selves. We have an external task-oriented self that's used to getting jobs done. And then we have a thoughtful, reflective self. Now, which one of those wakes up quicker in the morning? It's the external task-oriented self. What happens? The alarm goes off. John Ortberg, who's a wonderful pastor in Northern California and a friend, says, why don't we call it the opportunity clock, or it's going to be a great day? No, alarm. So now you jump into your task-oriented self and you're eating while you're trying to wash, you jump in your car, you're on your cell phone and all. And you get to the office, you run from this meeting, that meeting, you get home at night, you're absolutely exhausted, fall into bed, don't have the energy to even say goodnight to somebody who might be lying next to you. Boom, the next day you're out. And pretty soon you're caught in a rat race. And I love Lily Talman, the great Hollywood philosopher. She said, the problem with a rat race is even if you win it, you're still a rat. So one of the things that I try to do is enter my day slowly before I get into my task-oriented self. And so I think about the day and what's on my schedule. How do I want to be today? How can I best serve those people? And so I really kind of anticipate the day and what it's going to be. And then I go on into the day, but I've really had some chance to think about it, even kind of maybe review my mission statement and my picture of the future and some of my values and things like that. So who do I want to be today? And then it's really interesting. A friend of mine said, Blanchard, you get messed up my life for a lot of times, but now even at the end of the day, because he said he didn't normally, write a journal because, he's competitive and some people write in 3 or 4 colors and poetry. And he realizes now, and boy, it's a great idea, I do it now. At the end of the day, he has a journal, he writes the date on it, and then he puts praisings, which is from the original 1 Minute Manager. What did you do today that's consistent with who you want to be? So pat yourself on the back. And then after that, he puts redirections, which is what did I do today that I wish I hadn't done or wasn't consistent with who I wanted to be. I might set up an apology the next day and all. And I tell you, tracking your praisings and redirections at the end of the day really helps you. And what have they said for a long time? Unexamined life isn't worth living. And so the habits section really helps you there. So as we look at how we go about helping people become the servant leaders that they need today, we have them first look at their heart, their intentions, their character. Do they want to serve or be served? Then into their head, which is what are their beliefs about servant leadership and how does that lead into their leadership point of view? And then from there, what does this mean in terms of their behavior? How do they focus on really helping other people win and getting out of their own particular way? And then finally, what are the habits that help you recalibrate who you want to be in the world? And so that's really what we're all about. Marge, do you have any final thoughts you want to share?
Well, I think that, we're really talking about enlightened leadership principles here. This whole idea that your job is to help people get an A, not sort them out. That's not the way it's always been. And so what I'm hoping is that you might take 1 or 2 ideas away from this that might help you to move towards this goal that you might have to become more of a servant leader.
Oh, thank you so much, Margie.